breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
23-year-old Brian Laundrie, the only person of interest in Gabby Petito's death, is dead. Confirmed by FBI Denver in a release on Twitter moments ago. The human remains discovered at the Carlton Reserve here on Wednesday belong to Brian Laundrie. Hey there, everybody. JB Buno here with you on WFLA Now, our second stream here today on WFLA Now. And of course, we told you we would be back here live with any breaking developments here in the Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie story. And we now have a confirmation that Brian Laundrie is dead. Gabby Petito is dead. It all, of course, now comes back to the Justice for Gabby calls online, the Justice for Gabby calls that you heard yesterday at the conclusion of the FBI press conference here at Myakkahatchee at the Carlton Reserve. Are we any closer to getting justice for Gabby? Will we ever get answers? Where are we on seeking the truth? Let's get to the release that came in from the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Denver office here a short time ago. And I'll read it here as follows. Again, you can find it on the FBI Denver account on Twitter. And it reads, on October 21st, 2021, a comparison of dental records confirmed that the human remains found at the T. Mabry Carlton Jr. Memorial Reserve and Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park are those of Brian Laundrie. The FBI is grateful for the tremendous investigative support from our partners, Northport Police Department, Sarasota Police Department, Jackson Police Department, Charlotte County Sheriff's Office, Lee County Sheriff's Office, Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, Teton County Sheriff's Office, Teton County Search and Rescue, the Florida Wildlife Commission, the National Park Service, and the U.S. Forest Service. The title of the document, Human Remains Found at Carlton Reserve Confirmed as Those of Brian Laundrie, and then, of course, all the necessary information there at the header of this release. Brian Laundrie confirmed to be deceased. Let's all kind of break down where this all happened and how we got to this point. Chris and Roberta Laundrie, Brian's parents, go out to the Carlton Reserve yesterday, that being Wednesday, October 20th. According to Stephen Bertolino, the attorney, they go out and it is with law enforcement. There are cameras there present, images that, of course, have been making the rounds on social media. Chris and Roberta Laundrie go to an area that Brian is believed to have been in the past, and an area that is believed to have been underwater previously due to all of the precipitation that fell on the Carlton Reserve over the month of September. We showed you the aerials. It was a swampy wetland as far as rural Sarasota County, the wilderness there in rural Sarasota County at the Carlton Reserve. They go there yesterday. Chris Laundrie, Brian's father, discovers a silver dry bag, a dry bag that he grabs. There's video of him, images on social media of him holding this bag. It's brought to the attention of law enforcement. They focus on this area. Nearby is also a backpack is discovered. A notebook is discovered as well. In that area, human remains are found. As we found out yesterday from law enforcement sources, originally it was partial human remains. It was then confirmed to be skeletal remains later on today. And now we have the information here from the FBI that it was a comparison of dental records, not DNA, but dental records that confirm that the human remains that were found Wednesday morning are that of Brian Laundrie. Now, I tweeted out earlier that I was anticipating that the dental records would be used as supplemental evidence, that they would wait for DNA evidence to come back. This is, they are confident enough in the match of the dental records that these are the remains of Brian Laundrie. So many online observers have commented to me over the last several weeks, pointing out very, very particular details of Brian Laundrie's smile and his teeth. And if there were unique characteristics of the dental records that made it indistinguishable that this was Brian Laundrie, then that was enough for the FBI to announce this today unexpectedly. We, based on all information that we had obtained over the course of today, we were anticipating Friday being a potential first day where we could get this release as to whether or not the remains were that of Brian Laundrie. And perhaps the DNA would have come back on Friday or Saturday or Sunday or Monday of next week, sometime over the next, let's say, set 4 to 5 days, however quickly they can do that DNA testing. But DNA testing was secondary in the estimations of the FBI, them releasing, and you see it here on your screen, that the comparison of dental records confirm that the human remains found at the T. Mabry Carlton Jr. Memorial Reserve, the Carlton Reserve, and Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park are those of Brian Laundrie. Let's bring this all back to where the focus needs to be, and the focus needs to be on seeking truth, seeking fact. We still don't know what happened to Gabby Petito. We know her cause of death, but we don't know who is responsible, as the FBI put it yesterday in the press conference, who is responsible for the murder of Gabrielle Venora Petito. We don't know. Will we ever know? Is there evidence? And what will the FBI do now that we have a couple that embarks on a cross-country road trip together, seemingly happy, seemingly posting on social media, seemingly ready to spend the rest of their lives together, and just a few weeks later, they are both dead? What happens now as far as determining what the truth of this story is and what happened to Gabby Petito? Will we ever know? Is there enough ample evidence in Wyoming? Is there any evidence with the belongings that have been gathered here in Florida? Does the notebook tell us anything? Is there evidence, whether it's in Wyoming, Florida, or anywhere in between? Is there anything that has been obtained from the FBI, or is there any information that Chris Laundrie, Roberta Laundrie, or someone else knows that can indistinguishably tell us who is responsible for the murder of Gabby Petito? Will we ever have answers? The story doesn't end here, because justice for Gabby doesn't end here. And the endless calls for justice for Gabby, they don't just go quiet tomorrow. If anything, they're more loud tomorrow than they are today. Only because I know from having enough conversations with many of you who have been calling for justice for Gabby, those of you who have not just been there in person, but also who have been calling online from every corner of the world. I was on Instagram Live a little bit earlier on, was talking to people from New Zealand, from Australia, from Sweden, from the UK, people around the world calling for justice for Gabby. But you can't have justice for Gabby until you have the truth and the facts of what happened to Gabby in Wyoming and what led to her death, what led to her murder by manual strangulation, her murder by throttling. We are currently live in the 6 o'clock news here on WFLA News Channel 8, your NBC station here in Tampa, Florida. I encourage anybody here in Tampa to Masa Saidi, our own investigator who was here with us on stream earlier. She is currently live on the 6 o'clock news here in Tampa. For those of you looking for that, you can find that on our website. You can watch on WFLA.com. I think it's only available if you're here in the United States. International audiences, you're here with us on WFLA Now. And I know, and apologies, apparently we are having significant, or no, maybe we're not. We have had a very troublesome day on Facebook. Apologies to the Facebook audience specifically. That is not on our end. As we understand it, we have been trying to feed out a signal all day long. But we are going to try to feature some of the comments that are coming in here out of the Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter comment sections. You see the hashtag here underneath my name. Let's have a conversation. Not going anywhere. Let's have a conversation and discuss this with everybody as far as the Justice for Gabby cause, the Justice for Gabby movement, and what we have found out in the last hour. Speaking of which, let's just kind of talk about what has happened in the last hour. 2 detectives with the FBI, 2 agents with the FBI pulled up to the scene of Chris and Roberta's home about half an hour ago, maybe 45 minutes ago now. That home in Northport, again, of Brian Laundrie's parents. And as we would later find out through the reporters that have been diligently working this story, that was the It was roughly a 2 to 3 minute visit, and that was the visit that they told Chris and Roberta Laundrie that the remains that were found right near where they found the dry bag yesterday, right near where they found the articles that Stephen Bertolino, as he called it, right in that area at the Carlton Reserve, they found out, Chris and Roberta Laundrie from the FBI in person, that those remains are that of Brian Laundrie. Then the FBI Denver, soon thereafter, puts out a release online, the release that you're looking at here on your screen, and it is a release that tells us that dental records are what we're able to confirm that those remains are that of Brian Laundrie. Showing you some of the aerial video from today, some of the hard work by law enforcement. And we were talking about this on Instagram. We're going to feature your hashtag HJB comments here in just a moment. In fact, let's get that system prepared here so that we can start to bring in your hashtag HJB questions and comments, and we'll throw a couple up here just to make sure, because it did not work earlier. Our system was down, but I'll see if we can bring in some of the comments that are coming in right now. And we'll start here with this one. Hopefully this one works. And it comes in from Jennifer Murphy. Hashtag HeyJB. This sucks. Do you agree with Jennifer? It's going to be hard to find someone who doesn't. I am here to be as real with you as possible. I think that by now, if you've been following WFLA Now streams over the last several weeks, you know that I'm here to tell it like it is. And this isn't the outcome anybody wanted. We have an outcome here where we now have a 23-year-old man, a 23-year-old woman dead, a couple that had their entire lives ahead of them. And more than anything, with Brian Laundrie and with his death, we lose the most primary source for answers, potentially. What was in the notebook is now the big question, is it not? What did Chris and Roberta get told when Brian returned home? Brian Laundrie returns home from a cross-country road trip with his fiancée. This coming after he flew home and visited a storage locker and flew back to Wyoming, spends more time with Gabby Petito, then gets in a van and drives her van without her back to Florida. Gets back on September 1st to Florida. And when you get home, if you're Brian Laundrie, what do you tell? What was the conversation? Did something terrible happen? Was Brian aware that something terrible happened? Was Brian himself responsible for something terrible that happened? Depending on what happened, what did Brian tell his parents? Why did then, upon arrival back in Florida by Brian Laundrie, why did no one with the Laundrie family return any phone calls from Joe Petito, from Nicole Schmidt, from Gabby's family? Gabby's family hadn't heard from Gabby. Wanted to know where Gabby is. They don't need a long conversation. They don't need an explanation. All they wanted, and I know from having personal conversations with the family, I know that all they wanted at the time was a location. Where's Gabby? That's all they wanted. It would have been a very short conversation had it happened at all. But Chris and Roberta Laundrie ignore Gabby Petito's family. What did they know? Did Chris and Roberta know anything? Did Cassie know anything? What did Brian himself know? What did Brian, if Brian, did he have any role whatsoever in Gabby Petito's death? Days go by. Repeated denials to answer those calls. No one with the Laundrie family is responding to the Petito and Schmidt families. And Brian goes camping with his mom, his dad, his sister. They have a wonderful time based on the images that we have seen and the recollection of Cassie Laundrie. They go camping at the Fort DeSoto campground. They eat s'mores, watch a sunset. Brian hangs with his nephew. We've seen the images. Brian Laundrie is camping while Gabby Petito, something terrible has happened to her. Then Brian Laundrie then goes missing. And Chris and Roberta Laundrie the parents are represented by a man named Stephen Bertolino. Stephen Bertolino, an attorney from East Islip, New York. And no communication exists at any point between Gabby's family and Brian's family. Gabby's family, who's just so desperate to find out if she's alive and trying to find out where she is, alive or dead. They're just trying to get an answer to a basic question. They can't get it. And we're hearing more from an attorney than we're hearing from the family. This is aggravating, infuriating, mind-blowingly frustrating to the public, who have now at this point into early September are getting wind of this story. And as these questions get brought up in your living room, in workplaces by the water cooler, all over the world, people are saying, wait, did that really happen? Did he come back with her van and the families aren't communicating and she's missing and he's not talking, and all of these conversations? And because of this being such a seemingly unbelievable story, it becomes worldwide. Everyone around the world gravitating towards this story because they want answers. And the one answer that people wanted more than anything is what happened to Gabby. There's thousands of questions that fall underneath that. But number one on the list, the number one question throughout the entire process is, what happened to Gabby Petito? We would find out over the process that would ensue with the FBI getting involved and with law enforcement launching an investigation. We would then find out that Gabby Petito was dead, her remains found in Wyoming. The Teton County coroner would then announce in October that his autopsy is complete and that she died of manual strangulation. Don't have a suspect. We have a person of interest. That person of interest is the person who had his human remains found yesterday and confirmed today to be of Brian Laundrie, the fiance. But it doesn't answer the number one question: what happened to Gabby? We know that she was strangled to death, but we don't know who committed it. I think a lot of folks here want that to be announced, that to be the next step for the FBI to follow up and announce that there was enough evidence to determine that the person who committed that murder is the person that everybody has been assuming did it all along. But you can't do that until the FBI announces it. The autopsy's been conducted and confirmed. And we now have Brian Laundrie deceased. However, he is not a suspect. You can bang your head against the wall all you want. Bang it 100 times against that wall. It isn't going to change the fact that he is not a suspect right now. Now, the FBI could announce tomorrow morning that there was evidence that they didn't announce at the time because it's there. They have a process, and there's a book to go by here, going by the book, as far as their process for announcing the details of an ongoing federal investigation. But right now, he's a person of interest. Person of interest in her murder, as the FBI put it yesterday, but still a person of interest until the FBI publicly announces otherwise or presents evidence to suggest otherwise, that he is, in fact, a suspect. And I don't even think that people want... We don't... I think I speak for all of you. Again, this is me being real with you. People don't want a suspect. They don't want a person of interest. Done with the labels. Can we just put the labels away? The terminology. Put it all away. People just want to know who did it. Who killed Gabby? Gabby was strangled to death. A crime that is extremely personal. It is a personal way. If it's blunt force trauma, it could have been an act of rage and one strike, and you go too far, you cross a line, and you didn't realize what you had done. 3 to 5 minutes is how long it takes for manual strangulation estimated. That's a long time for you to think about what you're doing. It wasn't one moment in time. Wasn't a gunshot, wasn't a stabbing, wasn't blunt force trauma. It was manual strangulation. And people want to know who did it. They don't want suspects. They don't want persons of interest. Enough of that. Just want the answers. We want the truth. And now the calls to the FBI are going to be, what evidence do you have on who is responsible for the murder of Gabby Petito? Let's get to some of the other comments that are coming in here, and you can use hashtag HeyJB to get my attention here in the Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and on Twitter as well. These comment sections, we'll bring in the next one here, and it comes in from Lisa Perez, hashtag HeyJB. Do we know if the remains were in good enough condition to tell how long he's been dead and how he died? As I said, the number one question is what happened to Gabby Petito and who's responsible for her murder. Start there. But now we get into the other questions. How did Brian Laundrie die? What happened to Brian Laundrie? The theories have been. I would say that the theories have been circulating already in this stream, but they've been circulating for weeks. So everyone's going to have their own theory. I know because when I talk to people, just without a microphone in front of my face, people say, I think this is what happened. It's like the first thing. You say, hey, hey, JB, good to see you. I've been, following your streams, and I know you've been doing, working a lot of long hours with Gabby Petito coverage. Here's what I think. And I have to ask. People will just come up to you and say, this is what I think happened. Everyone has their belief on what happened. But now it's what happened to Brian Laundrie. What happened? Again, the release is here, and I'll put Lisa's comment away here. A comparison of dental records confirmed that the human remains found at T. Mabry Carlton Jr. Memorial Reserve and Myakkahatchee Environmental Park are those of Brian Laundrie, but it doesn't say how he died. And now there's going to be endless expert testimony as to skeletal remains, how long it would have taken in the warm, murky water of Myakkahatchee, how long it would have taken for that body to decompose. They have skeletal remains, and wildlife in Florida would have gotten to those remains. As gruesome and as grim as it is, it's wildlife would have gotten to those remains and participated in those remains have decomposed, and Florida wildlife, without question, in some way, at some degree, at some level, got at the remains of Brian Laundrie. Now, it's the remains that were likely in water for an extended period of time, and those waters have receded. We've had such a dry month here in October in Sarasota County, right here in the Tampa Bay area. Our meteorologist, our Max Defender 8 weather team here has been talking about how dry it's been. I'm looking at Rebecca Barry, our meteorologist. She's on the air right now. I'm looking at her. She's talking about how dry it's been. It's been dry. Water recedes, remains exposed. But those remains were likely in water for an extended period of time. And really, these questions to Lisa's comment here, and we'll bring Lisa's comment back up on screen here. Hashtag KJB, do we know if the remains were in good enough condition to tell how long he has been dead? We don't know that at this time. And how he died, we don't know that at this time. These are the next, now the questions that will be answered and hopefully in due time. But we do not know. Hey, Masa. Trying to get Masa Saidi to join us. I'm going to see if I can. She just wrapped up being on WFLA News Channel 8 at 6 o'clock, our 6 o'clock newscast. Hold on, I'm going to step away from the mic for 10 seconds. Masa is unavailable. Would have loved to have gotten her perspective. We'll stay here with you live on WFLA now. Just sometimes it's easier when I have someone else to bounce off of here. but it's because we're in the middle of our 6 o'clock news, 7 o'clock news, 8 o'clock news on the way. Both those newscasts on the way. Slim pickings here as far as another reporter or anchor or journalist here to join me on WFLA Now. Let's get to this comment here from, you know what? I'm going to call for, let's just get a whole bunch of comments and questions in the queue. I'm going to call for your hashtag AJB comments now. I'm going to add a bunch of them to the queue here across our social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and then that way I can just kind of go rapid fire through as many of these as possible. So type them in now, and we'll add them here. I see that Lisa is joining us on Facebook. Evelyn is joining us. Let's go to YouTube and say hi to everybody here on YouTube, like Christina Cal, Tiffany Vargas, Blue Sky, Joey D. A lot of folks joining us. Again, WFLA Now, the core mission behind this is to feature what you guys have to say. So to everybody joining us here on WFLA Now, very much appreciate spending part of your Thursday evening here with us. Or if you're joining us from around the world, it could be a nighttime stream for you or a morning stream for you. Just appreciate folks that are joining us here for these breaking news developments. The FBI confirming that the human remains discovered at the Myakkahatchee Environmental Park do belong to Brian Laundrie. So looking here for some of the comments. We'll get to that comment. I see that one coming in. Wanda, we'll animate your comment. I talked about your comment, Wanda, very, very much on Instagram, and I did it a little bit on stream earlier. We'll discuss that very much. Jessica, I see yours. We'll get to your comment. Here. Sophie, I see your comment. We'll get to yours. Put it into the queue. That's Cassandra with an excellent comment. We'll try to bring that in. Yeah, Patty, yours as well. I see that there are some Spanish language viewers joining us here as well. Vicky, you guys, these are. I'm just reading through the ones that are just coming in, and this is why this is. I would rather be here than on television. I'm just telling you. Being able to spotlight some of these questions, that's I will be brief with my mini lecture here, but interactive journalism, these questions that you're asking right now in the comment section, these are all important, pertinent questions to where this goes forward from here. So you're asking the right questions, and I appreciate that. And if you use hashtag KJB, we can feature your comment and animate it on screen. But if you don't want your picture and your name on our broadcast for probably, I think we're in the 100,000 plus range right now. If that's a lot of people to have your name and your profile picture on screen for. So if you don't want that exposure, just don't use a hashtag, and don't use hashtag AJB, and we'll let your comment scroll idly on by. Let's see here. Steve, I was thinking the same thing. I will address that here as well. Let's get to Chelsea, another one. Give me 30 more seconds to just add as many questions and comments here as possible. It doesn't have to be a question. You are allowed to share how you feel about the story, and you're allowed to let it all out. That's something that we do as well. We give you an opportunity to vent your frustrations or vent your thoughts, or it doesn't need to be a question. So, Chris, with an excellent question and comment. And yeah, Kathleen is joining us from Australia. We will get to your comment. And we'll get one more in the queue here. One more, and then we'll start rapid firing through these answers. Okay. If you're just joining us, if you're just finding this stream, we're live on WFLA Now. I'm JB Buno, digital anchor here at WFLA News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida. My job here is, of course, to be here with you on WFLA Now. And my job isn't just to report the news, but bring you into the conversation and have a back and forth conversation with you. Television, you consume that information when you grab your remote control and you put on your TV, and you receive the information. And that's pretty much it. On stream here, what we can do is we can bring your comments in and talk with you back and forth. I can bring up something. You can then follow up with something that I said, and we can, before you know it, we're having a full-on conversation with people around the world. So that's the idea of WFLA Now. And despite the fact that this is, I know, this is a story that is emotional for so many, we're going to be objective here in addressing some of the questions and comments that you have in the social media comment section. We're paying attention to Twitter, paying attention to Facebook, paying attention to YouTube Live. We'll bring in any questions or comments that we see that are, of course, air appropriate using hashtag HeyJB. So let's start here with Melissa Ann. Hashtag HeyJB. Will the parents be charged with anything now? They're not charged. There's no evidence that we know of that they have committed a crime. By everything that we know, they have cooperated. And I went on Instagram Live, my WFLA JB Instagram account, about 2 hours ago. No, 2.5 hours ago now. And almost every comment that I received was, JB, they planted it. The bag, the notebook. It's planted. They couldn't wrap their brains around it's a strange coincidence. Brian Laundrie's parents go to the reserve. They check out an area that they think that Brian has been to in the past, and Chris Laundrie, not law enforcement, not a cadaver dog, not a drone from the air, that it's of all the federal and local search teams that have combed through Myakkahatchee and combed through the Carlton reserves, of all the people to find the very first sign of Brian Laundrie, it happens to be his father? So many eyeballs going through the Carlton Reserve over the last several weeks. And you're telling me that the first pair of eyeballs to find something of relevance belonging to Brian Laundrie is that of his dad? It's hard to believe. And that's why, as I mentioned on Instagram, the comments must have been planted. Must have been planted because it's just such a strange coincidence, is it not? So with that coincidence, the conspiracy theories were just in overdrive. But the human remains were found near it, and those human remains, according to dental records in the comparison, do in fact belong to Brian Laundrie, bringing an end to the search for Brian Laundrie. He, at the age of 23, is dead. And now the aftermath of that portion of this story, as far as the search for Brian, what's next is now the search for the truth of what happened between these two. Will the parents be charged with anything, Melissa? They're not. They are cooperating. The parents, Chris Laundrie himself, found the first sign that led them to these human remains. And according to Stephen Bertolino, the attorney, they have cooperated at every stage of the investigation. Now, Josh Taylor with Northport Police, take this for what you will, said that there were some oddities there as far as the dynamic with law enforcement and the family. Oddities is what he called it. But those oddities, listen, that could be Josh Taylor just giving his 2 cents from investigators that have been trying to, communicate and work with the Laundries to find Brian. Or this is a family that has been in tremendous grief and had their world literally turned upside down on their street in Northport and are just trying to do the very best to navigate unprecedented amounts of attention. There's no evidence that they have committed a crime. If evidence comes about that they did know of something that happened to Gabby Petito and know that Brian Laundrie was involved in her murder and that they had direct knowledge of it, and if there is the chance that they were accomplices as far as his eluding of authorities, if that comes to light, if evidence is presented or has been gathered or is in the process of being gathered that points to that, you can bet your bottom dollar that there's going to be charges filed. But that's down the rabbit hole right now. Right now, we have 2 parents that are in their home in Northport and just found out that their 23-year-old child is dead. Social media has been so quick to vilify the Laundries because I go back to this time and time again. The root cause of that is, why didn't you take the phone calls? You had the presence of mind to go camping. You were there at the campsite, having fun, eating s'mores, hanging out by the campfire, ignoring calls from Gabby's family. That's the facts. Joe Petito, Nicole Schmidt tried to contact the family. The family didn't call back, didn't take their calls, didn't take their text messages, but they went camping. And that is why social media has been so quick to jump on the Laundries. But not answering a phone call, not responding to someone else's text isn't a crime. I will tell you, over the last few weeks, if not responding to a text message is a crime, I am charged with probably 300 first-degree counts of not getting back to people that I care about, just because of how crazy my life has been over the last several weeks. I have to hold on, folks. Just responding to somebody who I've been talking about here on stream a lot with this story. Melissa Ann, we'll find out if there are charges that are going to be filed. We will find out. Christine Atkins, hashtag AJB. I've seen another comment that canine and divers don't understand how they could have missed it, whether underwater. Now, okay, so let's talk about the canines, okay? So we had a phenomenal conversation today, and it was, again, interactive journalism, people responding in real time, presenting us with information about canines and how cadaver dogs operate in the 95% accuracy that they have, even underwater, when it comes to picking up on the scent, the odor of decomposition of human remains. And that they are unbelievably keen as far as their ability, their natural ability, and a natural ability that is then, of course, enabled by training with the canine handler to identify when human remains are present, whether it's above ground or underwater or underground. Cadaver dogs are Earth's nature, like, experts as far as tracking down these scents and communicating it back to us humans. And they have an unbelievable sense of being able to pick up. Now, so the canines were in many different areas, but we don't know some key pieces of information about the canines. First and foremost, yeah, they can detect even the most faint hint of odor in really deep water. As I think Josh Benson was talking earlier about 15 feet, about roughly 15 feet. But at the same time, if it's a massive volume of water, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water, how far can a canine, if their nose is to the water, pick up on that scent? If it's down 4 feet, just throwing this out there, if it's down 4 feet and if it's 100 yards away, if it's down 100 yards away and it's in really deep water or several feet deep of water, that's a long distance away and a lot of water for the dog to pick up on that scent. And that's really what it looked like here. Let's not forget what it looked like in September when the search was most active, with canines, with drones, with FLIR, with all the technology that was there. It was a swampy wetland because of all the rain that had fallen on the Carlton Reserve. Mother Nature revealed what was underneath the surface of that water over time, put these remains, literally brought these remains to light. Did Mother Nature have anything to do with Brian Laundrie's death? Were the swampy, wet conditions part of why Brian Laundrie is no longer with us? Gators, moccasins, all different species of snake. coyotes, panthers, but gators under the surface of the water. If you go into the Carlton Reserve for a hike, whether you're trying to elude authorities or you're just enjoying the wilderness here in Florida, if you go in there and it's several feet deep of water and you're wading through that water, you have no idea what is chomping at your ankles. So all of the water that had accumulated, it's just a fair question to ask at this stage. We don't know how Brian Laundrie died. We don't know if he took his own life. We don't know if something happened to him, but could Mother Nature have been a participating factor? The treacherous conditions, the terrible treacherous conditions that are at the Carlton Reserve in September, could that have had something to do with it? Back to the question, divers were brought in if something was found. They were going to search underwater. Don't think of divers as actively participating in the search efforts. They were brought in more as if they were going to recover something under the surface of the water, and searching underwater with divers, that's an extremely difficult thing to do over let's say a grid search sort of format. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm getting a phone call here. I do not know who that is. Wanda, guess, #HeyJB. Yes, everyone is angry, but we have to remember that the Laundries lost a son. I talked about this on Instagram. And I talked about what I said was on Instagram earlier, and I said it on stream earlier too. No parent, even though they have been vilified. I know that Chris and Roberta Laundrie have received so much vitriol on social media. I get it. I understand the reasons why, and I'm not going to tell you that your feelings are invalid. I'm just going to say this. No parent deserves to find the remains of their child. No parent deserves to have that image ingrained in their head for the rest. Losing a child is traumatic enough, and I know from covering stories and speaking to parents of those who have lost their sons and daughters. It's a nightmare come to life, and it's something that doesn't go away. You cope, you find ways to move on, but it's always there. Losing a child is perhaps the most difficult thing that a parent can endure. And if there's anything that's more difficult than enduring the knowledge that your child is dead, it's seeing that or discovering yourself that your child is dead. So Brian Laundrie, his remains being found yesterday. We were talking just a little bit on stream earlier that Chris and Roberta Laundrie, no matter how you feel about them, they don't deserve that image ingrained in their mind for the rest of their life. They are very much a family in grieving right now. They are in tremendous pain. They haven't been charged with a crime. They are cooperating with law enforcement according to their attorney. There are all of these. Let's keep in mind that they are human beings too. I understand the resentment towards them. We've talked about it at great length here on stream. But if there was a moment for everybody just for an opportunity here for us to remind you that they are human beings too, it's this. It's today. They lost a child. Brian Laundrie, 23, had his whole life ahead of him. We don't know the truth of what happened, and he is dead. It is a tragedy. The story of Gabby Petito is a tragedy. What has now happened for Brian Laundrie's parents and what they are enduring right now, that is a tragedy for them. And no matter how you feel about them, that's just how it is. Jessica Osler, #AJB. Do we know if the FBI will follow up or Florida follow up with a news conference? So this is interesting. The means of communicating to the public. They put out a release. They did not call a press conference. And there's just responding to a text. the means of communicating this news out. This means of communicating this news out is, yes, yesterday they had a press conference. Today they had a press release issued. And perhaps because they didn't think that a press conference was warranted given the news. That in this particular case, a press release and just announcing these details here, this news release, that was all that was necessary. But my 2 cents on it are this, Jessica, that this isn't the final press conference on this story, that there will be more press conferences in the future, and it just depends on when we have results as far as getting answers on what happened to Gabby Petito. Sophie Buchan, #AJB, will there be another conference to confirm his death or how he died? I would imagine that it's entirely possible, just talking about it. Will there be another press conference, particularly on Brian Laundrie's death? I don't know, but that's certainly possible. Also, the remains being found, and the circumstances just surrounding the remains themselves and the process, and where does DNA factor into this now? I mean, the dental records confirming this. I thought I thought it would happen in reverse order. And I think that other experts said the same, that it would be DNA first, and then dental records would confirm what the DNA told them. But we have dental records here confirming that it is, in fact, Brian Laundrie. I think that the next press conference would be to announce results. Again, I've been talking on stream about the FBI doesn't announce developments or updates or little micro things that occur over the course of their investigation. They announce results. This is a result that they have announced. So the next time that they have results, I would imagine that a press conference is going to be called. Whether that's FBI Denver, FBI Tampa. I mean, this is coming from FBI Denver, even though it's pertaining to, of course, Florida and a discovery in Florida, but it comes from FBI Denver. So I believe that FBI Denver would have a... Wow, hold on a second. I understand that there's a lot of people that are... All right, you know what? Just putting my phone away. Putting the phone away. Let's get to next comment question. Cassandra will be on stream until 7 Eastern. 7 Eastern. Cassandra Joyce, #AJB. Will the event be able to confirm how he died since all they found was bones? This is challenging for the forensics team now, because if the remains are skeletal, that is less evidence, less forensic evidence that they have to determine what the cause of death is for Brian Laundrie. You don't have as much to work with there when you're talking about skeletal remains. Now, there's different ways and different tactics and techniques that can be employed by the FBI and by the forensics team to try and determine what happened, and they will do that. But it's certainly, Cassandra, without question, ask anyone in forensics. They want as much detail as possible on the condition of the body and of the body itself and the characteristics of the body and the remains to aid them in figuring out how a person died. The less that's there, the more difficult it is to determine what happened to that person. Patty Connor, #AJB. I read an article today from a canine expert who claims that dogs that are trained properly would have hit on the body even underwater. The smell travels up. Yes, Patty, we just talked about this with another commenter who filed in a comment. There has been shock from experts that the cadaver dogs didn't pick up on the scent here, but I want to remind you of something, folks. A lot of the attention was paid to the west side, the Venice side of the Carlton Reserve. It's not as if this was the only section of the reserve. They were searching several different areas of the reserve. It wasn't all focused to one spot. You're talking about 24,000 acres. It's not the park down the street with your local playground. It's 24,000 square acres. So until you see it from either the air or even the ground, You don't know how big of an area that you're talking about here. The dogs are the superheroes that we know them to be because they have solved so many and made the discoveries that have broken so many other cases for the FBI and for law enforcement across the country. They are one of the most important resources within a local police department or with a county sheriff's office. However, you're talking about an enormous area. I think that the observations that have been coming in from folks on social media that why haven't the dogs picked up on the scent? Why did the dogs not get this earlier or sooner? You don't know the size and scope of the area that we're talking about here. And yes, it wasn't that deep into the reserve, and yes, they should have hit on it, but it was a massive, it's a massive area. It's just absolutely massive. Vicky Quinlan, #AJB, I just came on. Do you think some more information that the FBI knows will come out now? In time. The FBI announces results. And we have been talking about at great length here on stream that the opportunity in the future, and this goes for all cases, for in a active, ongoing federal investigation, especially one of this magnitude, that the most information comes to light in a courtroom legally when it has to be presented for prosecutors to state their case against the defense. That's when the floodgates open, so to speak, with documentation, with evidence that comes forward and is presented. And I can go down the list of a million cases in the past where we found out so much that we didn't know previously, but we found out during the trial portion of the story, when evidence was first presented and submitted for use within the court. And this story might never reach a courtroom. Now, charges would have to be filed, and there would have to be someone in the defense to of course, for it to reach court, for it to reach a courtroom. So we don't know what charges are forthcoming in this case, if any. But what happens now to all the information the FBI collected if this never reaches a courtroom? Does it stay sealed forever? You can put in public records requests, but they can take years to come back. They can be heavily redacted. But I would imagine that there is more of a likelihood that we will get more information in the days, weeks, months ahead. However, the FBI announces results. Let's keep that in mind. Steve Winslade, #AJB. Isn't it a bit quick to get dental match? I was thinking the same thing, Steve. We weren't expecting this. I was grabbing my keys, ready to go home. 100% serious. We were preparing for a lengthy day tomorrow because we knew that tomorrow was in all likelihood going to be the day where the initial DNA evidence could be coming back. That lab work that is expedited for a case of this high profile, those results likely come back based on the windows that we have been receiving from federal experts, that Friday was the first day where it was pretty darn likely. So we were preparing for a long day Friday. However, like I said, I was grabbing my keys, ready to go home. And then this news occurred, and here we are. The remains are that of Brian Laundrie here at the Carlton Reserve, Myakkahatchee. Chelsea Mercado, #AJB. How do you think this will affect the Gabby Petito investigation? Do you think it will stall the process as they look into Brian's death? It changes it in the most obvious way possible. You're one person of interest, the most primary direct source of information with potentially knowledge of the final moments of Gabby Petito. That person is no longer alive. So now, where does it go from here? You have to work with what is available to you. And what is available are the autopsy results and DNA coming back from if DNA was collected, if DNA samples were found on Gabby Petito's body, on her remains. Was there information in the notebook? Did Brian Laundrie tell anyone what happened between he and Gabby on the road? Did he tell anyone why he came back from Wyoming to Florida without her? Does someone within the family, or does someone that Brian is with Brian's inner circle, does somebody know something? Did he leave anything behind is what I'm saying. Did he leave, whether it was spoken word to someone he trusted, or whether it was written word electronically or with the pen or pencil in his hand? Did he leave anything behind, or did he take everything, all of the knowledge with him in his death? The FBI is going to be asked these questions. We'll be asking them in the only way that we can, electronically. And I'm sure that they're already being asked by our team here at WFLA, Masa and others. Will we ever get answers? The FBI doesn't announce. They don't respond to inquiries like that. They announce results. We'll see exactly what happens. Linda Tripp. #AJB. Do they still have to play their Fifth Amendment rights? Wonder if they will talk now if they know what happened to Gabby. I mean, the Constitution isn't going to just, get altered for this story. You have your constitutional right to remain silent. By all indications, Brian Laundrie's parents, Chris and Roberta, have been cooperating through their attorney. It is your right as an American to be, of course, represented legally by an attorney at law. And they are cooperating by all indications. Everything that we have heard, they are cooperating with police. But if they do get brought in front of a grand jury to answer to whether or not they have information on Gabby Petito's murder, they can invoke their constitutional right to remain silent. The law of the land you live in, unless you're joining us from around the world. And then in that case, it's just a brief, mini, very overview, surface level explanation of how it works in the United States of America. You don't have to talk. Even when put in front of an official forum like a grand jury, you can invoke your constitutional right to remain silent, and provided that there is no evidence to suggest that you had any knowledge of these said events, then there is nothing that law enforcement can do. That's the way it works in this country. Chris, #AJB. What are we going to do to prepare law enforcement to discern domestic violence on the road? Ooh, okay. I'm trying to get going here by 7 o'clock, but this is, Chris, this is a huge conversation now. I want to read to you, to everybody, a little bit about what happened today with Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis and Joe Petito had a conversation. And I know from talking to Joe, and Joe wouldn't mind me sharing this with you, that Joe Petito wants to be involved in solutions to prevent future tragedies such as this one. I've said it on stream before, and I'm saying it here again. I talked to Joe. We've been in regular contact. And Joe Petito doesn't want anything like this to happen again if his family can have anything to do with participating in the solutions of the future. So, Governor Ron DeSantis said today that Joe Petito feels really strongly that there's more that can be done to protect people like Gabby, who were victims of domestic violence, and I agree with him. Governor DeSantis, based on his conversation that he had yesterday, 3:15 Eastern Time, with Mr. Joe Petito. This is going to spur a conversation about domestic violence, about domestic abuse, and more than that, how we can improve the system that we have in this country to respond to situations of domestic violence. Is it a problem with training, policy, not having the right people to discern whether or not a couple is in danger, or one half of a couple is in danger? Do we train law enforcement more in this area? Do we update policy, change policy on a federal or state level? Do we add resources to existing law enforcement departments like social workers to be on standby, to be ready to help officers who are sworn to protect us? But even police, I'm sure many officers would say that the more the information that they have and the more expertise available to them at a crucial juncture such as the one that we had in Moab, the more help that they have to discern whether or not they think that there are troublesome signs, the more that they have available to them as far as expertise, the more that they can help prevent future tragedies. Yes, I think that law enforcement officers would agree with that. So is it about bringing in more resources? Is it about improving training? Is it about updating policy and enacting law? All I know is that Joe Petito wants to be part of the solution in Florida and beyond. Him being a Florida resident, him being in Vero Beach. All right, let's get to the final two. Hashtag HJB questions and comments. Kathleen Fairbairn, hashtag HJB. Do you think that we will hear the parents' side of the story tuning in from Australia? I was talking about some of the folks in Australia and really around the world that are, what time is it in Australia? Hold on, I'm just curious. Time in Sydney, Australia right now, it is 10 in the morning. Hello to Kathleen watching and everybody watching from around the globe. Do you think that we will hear the parents' side of the story? I was talking about this on Instagram, and I'll try to take that 5-minute explanation and try to break it down. It's only human nature for someone to tell their side of the story. I think, my 2 cents, this is just me answering this question. I think Chris and Roberta Laundrie want to tell their version of the story at some point. I don't know if it's going to be in 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, or 5 years, or if ever. But I think that Chris and Roberta Laundrie, just like Cassie wanted to tell her side of the story. She came out to her front lawn and did a 20-minute Q&A with demonstrators outside of her home because she wanted to tell her version of the story. I think that Chris and Roberta Laundrie, likely, unless that they have something extremely sinister to hide, they want to tell their version of events, and they want to. It's only natural for somebody to want to clear their name and get their lives back. They don't want this to define the remaining decades of their lives. I would imagine it's only natural for them to want to tell their version of the story. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I think that if it's Chris and Roberta Laundrie, I think that there is at least conversations being had about when is the most appropriate time for us to tell our version of the story, unless they have something very much to hide. That's my response to that question. And lastly, we'll end on this. Julie Brewer, hashtag KJB. I wonder if there is a suicide note in the notebook. The notebook is does it have the answers? Does it have the answers? We don't know if Brian Laundrie committed suicide. We don't know if he claimed his own life. We don't know. Maybe we'll find out. But you're not alone if you're wondering what is in that notebook, because that notebook might be the only avenue for us getting answers to, again, the top question. What happened to Gabby Petito? Who murdered her? Is the notebook our best shot? Is it our only shot? Folks, our streaming coverage resumes tomorrow, Friday, October 22nd. We'll be back here with you live on WFLA Now and break down all the developments that occur. Right when you think that developments are over for the day, we get a development like this one. We're on standby at all hours of the day to go live here on WFLA Now and have a conversation with you. Again, the mission of WFLA Now is to feature what you have to say in our comment section. On political stories, we run polls. On other stories, we run polls. We ask for your stance on a various political issue or anything. We are always here spotlighting what you have to say. And that's what we do here at WFLA Now. And we appreciate wherever you are watching from. I don't care if it's Australia. I don't care if it's South Africa. I don't care if it's Norway, Sweden, Florida, New York, Wyoming, Utah, California, Alaska, Hawaii, Japan, China, Mongolia. I don't care where you're watching from. I appreciate you spending a portion of your evening here with us. The conversation doesn't end here. I'll be checking out the various social media platforms that I do. I make the rounds on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Discord. Big shout out to the folks on Discord, Reddit, and what's the last one? Instagram. I'll be trying to chime in with some of the conversations that are being had there. And again, to everybody watching, wherever you're watching from, thank you. The very latest for you is on WFLA.com, but we enter now standby mode on WFLA Now. If there's a development in an hour, I'm back here with you live on WFLA Now to break it down. And we don't know what's going to happen in the hours ahead. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen in an hour. We don't know what's going to happen, but we are in standby mode to go back live the moment that we have additional updates to share with you on this story and others. WFLA Now also covers all of the happenings, all the stories that break in Tampa Bay, all the big stories across Florida. We're live here with you to not just bring you the latest, but have a conversation with you about the latest. So going into standby mode on WFLA Now, also on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. You want to read the latest? Our award-winning team here at WFLA.com, at WFLA's digital team, working with the latest on Brian Laundrie, the latest on Gabby Petito. All of our articles live there. So if you want the very latest, go to WFLA.com, the WFLA app. For everybody joining us, thanks so much for being with us. I'm JB Buno. More ahead in the hours ahead on WFLA.com and the WFLA app.